Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Chris is in Fortuna in España. Chris, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. Long-time listener, but very first-time caller. Good morning.
Good man, thank you.
The vote ex-believe. I was always a Conservative voter, and, they told us in their manifestos and so on, and I believe those manifestos, and
Told you
I think
what?
Labour have done the same. Well, they made us promises, didn't they, that they never delivered on. Exactly what's happened with Brexit. I mean,
I don't quite...
all the different
I don't follow you.
I can't
Sorry.
specify, but basically, when you see, for example, a Conservative manifesto, as per Theresa May, the things she promised, she never delivered on. And the same thing happened with Labour. They promise things. Politicians promise things, and they never deliver.
Sorry, you're being a bit too clever for me. What's the point that you're making? You're saying you voted Leave. Now you know you were lied to, but hey, politicians always lie, so I'm not going to get upset about this one.
I think the point. Your point
is that what you're saying? I just want to be clear.
Sure, yeah. The fact is they make promises and they never deliver. And then look at Boris now. He's doing a Trump. He's shouting from the rooftops that we're going to do it, we can do it. And, as I said to your researcher there.
Yeah, I just forgive me if this sounds patronising. Just take a moment and now try and say what you rang in to say in a couple of sentences.
I think the British bulldog spirit will show through. The electorate,
Pardon?
when we went to vote, I think the British bulldog spirit, when we leave, if we ever leave, will show through and we'll rise above it all.
What do you think that means? The British bulldog spirit will show through and we'll rise above it all. What will we rise above?
We're above all the doom and gloom. At least we need some.
How does bulldog spirit change the economic figures that have come out today?
Well, the economic figures, James, have been proved wrong, as you mentioned to a previous colleague.
No. Economic forecasts have been proved wrong. Economic figures have not been proved wrong. You see, Chris.
Okay, and
so how are we going to rise above the contraction in the economy? How are we going to rise above that using bulldog spirit?
I think because everybody will pull together, James. And
are you, Chris, mate? Forgive me again. You're taking the mickey, right?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get my point over.
Right. So the bulldog spirit will see us through. We'll rise above it all, and we'll pull together.
Yes.
But those are all phrases.
17.4 million people voted to do that.
They didn't. You see, 17.4 million people voted to have a better Britain.
Yes.
And everything you've said is designed to describe how we're going to cope with having a worse Britain.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's a worse Britain.
So what do we need to rise above then, Chris?
You just mentioned in your opening thing
bulldog spirit. Why do we need bulldog spirit to tackle something that improves our country? Bulldog spirit is usually something that you use in adversity. You talk about we're under attack, we'll use our bulldog spirit. If things are going to be better, why do we need bulldog spirit?
Because, James, we are under attack from the people who are all totally negative about the prospects. I know the predictions are there. I know the actual figures.
I am going to ask you the question again, however much you waffle.
Yeah.
So why do we need bulldog spirit to deal with things that are going to make Britain better?
We need to have bulldog spirit to work through it all, James.
To work through what? Because it's going to be better.
Whatever is thrown at us, James, we can
But nothing
overcome
is thrown at us. We've thrown it all at ourselves. We voted for this, and people like you did it because you thought Britain would get better. Why do we need bulldog spirit to deal with things getting better? Why do we need to rise above improvements in our country, Chris?
Because the bulldog spirit is to get us away from the EU and move on as a country, a united country, which is the message that Boris Johnson's putting over the moment.
Could you say one sentence that actually is meaningful?
17.4 million people voted to do this.
No, they didn't. 17.4 million people did not vote to leave without a deal. They all voted to leave with a good deal. They voted to leave with the deal that Vote Leave's own literature said would be easy to secure. They voted to leave with the deal that Liam Fox said would be the easiest in human history. They voted to do what Michael Gove described as allowing us to dictate the terms in our own economic interest. They voted to leave because they believed that somebody like Digby Jones had a better understanding of the German car industry industry than the German car industry. They voted to leave because they believed that someone like Nadine Dorries had a better understanding of the World Trade Organization than the Director General of the World Trade Organization. So I'll give you one more chance. Don't say bulldog spirit, pull together or rise above. Tell me why we need any of these tactics to cope with something that's going to make Britain better.
Tenacity. Tenacity.
Do you know, I'm going to wave you goodbye, and 49%, I think you're taking the mickey out of levers. 51% of me says you actually are this deluded.
I think we need to deliver. We need to deliver.
We need to deliver with a British bulldog spirit and rise above it all by pulling together.
James, I took a big risk voting leave. I have a property in Spain. I could have lost it all. I may still lose it all. It's not about me.
Well, I'll tell you what you do, Chris. If the bailiffs turn up at your door, just get some bulldog spirit out.
I will.
Yeah,
I'm
funny, isn't it? Jay's in Leeds. Jay, what would you like to say? Thank you, Lisa. Jay, what would you like to say?
Hi, Jay. Hi there. Long-time listener. First time that I've had the courage to call you up.
Go on, mate.
My point really is just reverting back to what you were saying about essentially Boris Johnson being unelected by the people and forcing us to do things that potentially we don't want to do. What's different about the leaders in the EU that aren't elected?
What are they making you do that you don't want to do?
Well, they control our laws, and they force certain laws on us, do they not?
I mean, let's say we leave with no deal on November the 1st. What are you going to be able to do that you can't do now?
Well, personally,
yeah,
I don't think it's going to actually affect me.
Well, all right, not personally then, nationally. What will the country be able to do that it can't do now?
No, that's not the point I'm making.
Well, it's exactly the point you're making. You just said, what's the difference between Boris Johnson riding roughshod over the people and doing things that he's not... that nobody wants him to do? What's the difference between him doing it and the European Union doing it? So I'm saying, give me some examples of the European Union doing it. And you said they control our laws. I said, what laws? And you said, oh, that's not really what I meant.
Well, I don't particularly know. I don't have the knowledge. You have the knowledge. I'm asking you to explain what's different about Boris, an unelected official, doing something.
I just did. Here is the example of Boris Johnson ignoring, potentially, I still hope he doesn't, but he has refused to rule out the possibility that he will ignore a sovereign parliament to force through legislation that nobody has voted for. That's knowledge. I say to you, to the best of my knowledge, there is no example of the European Union doing that, but you phone me up to tell me that they're the same. So now it's your knowledge that will explain that comparison, Jay. Or you'll say, sorry, James, I've made a fool of myself and I'd like to apologise.
Well, listen, I suggested, but I didn't have the courage to call you initially.
It's not about courage, mate. It's all very easy to match. So give me the example of the thing you've rung in to draw a comparison with.
Well, what I keep hearing all the time from Brexiteers is that the EU controls certain laws in our country.
And you turn around to them, don't you, Jay, because you're a bright fella, and you say, what laws?
Well, I just say what they say is fact.
Yeah, but you say what laws? Because otherwise you'd be a mug.
Let me.
So when you say what laws to them, Jay, what do they say back to you?
Well, I don't say what laws.
Why not? Do you want to buy a bridge, Jay?
Yeah, sure, I'll buy a bridge.
I've got a gorgeous bridge. It's got cantilevers in the middle. You can shave boats through it. It currently stands just next to the Tower of London. Give me £2 million and I'll have it delivered to you in Leeds by tea time. Or do you say, can I see some proof and evidence, please, before I make such an enormous decision? Why didn't you do that, Jay?
Why?
Yeah.
Let me speak about this. Let me speak about a point that maybe I'm more...
Let's just focus on this question. Why didn't you ask for evidence before you were... Well, of course you want to move on from that point because your trousers are around your ankles, but you can't, mate. Because you can't. No, here's the question. When somebody tries to sell you something, why didn't you ask for evidence that it existed?
My question is, why are you unhappy with Boris doing things without essentially your permission, but you're happy for EU officials to do the same thing?
But they don't, because you haven't been able to provide a single example, Jay, and you're still here on the radio.
There are examples out there.
Oh, Jay, so now you're expecting me to give you the argument to back up your ludicrous point?
I'll make a different point then.
OK. Are you sure? Because you can call it quits if you want, Jay, and get on with your day.
I'm having fun. So the first time the EU have got their backs against the wall, we have Boris's stance.
Sorry, the EU have got their backs against the wall.
Yeah, they're scared now.
The EU are scared.
They're scared of how Boris is behaving, which will ultimately result in the deal happening.
OK, so you want a deal?
Of course, I'd like a deal.
Right. And if we don't get a deal?
Then we have to honour the referendum vote and leave
But
the
you've
EU.
just proved beyond the vaguest shadow of a doubt that at least one person in Leeds cast their vote that day without having a clue about what he was doing. So why do we need to honour that?
I casted my vote knowing full well that the transitional period in the short term would have a negative impact
No, you
on this
didn't.
country.
Don't lie, Jay.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Who told you that then? Who told you that then? Who told you that then? Which lever told you? Which lever told you during the campaign that there would be short-term economic damage?
Just taking apart any contract that you've had with a bloc for 40 years or so is obviously.
So who told you that? Who said during the referendum campaign that things were going to get worse, Jay? Who was it you believed?
I made my own mind up on that.
Oh, of course you did, Jay. Mate, when you start lying to yourself, you lose the capacity to love. It's 11 o'clock. Luke's in Manchester. Luke, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Yeah, well, basically, there's a few things. One, so I voted Leave, and I actually helped the Vote Leave campaign. Like volunteering and whatnot. I just, the idea that people voted for something, for the country's future to either be better or worse, it's a misnomer. Like, people voted to leave the European Union. It wasn't for us to vote on what terms we were going to leave.
They weren't told there'd be 350 million quid a week for the NHS, or that we'd be able to do superior trade deals to the one that we currently have.
Well, we'll be able to negotiate our own trade deal. That's the sort of the point that's salient.
But why is that salient if they're going to be worse than the ones we're already in?
Well, there's no guarantee that they will be worse.
So you give me an example of a market.
It's a leap into the uncertain future. It definitely is.
Is that how you campaigned when you were out volunteering? Did you knock on doors and say it's a leap into the uncertain future?
Well, we were given official sort of guidelines on what to say, and I didn't necessarily agree with. Well, no, let me rephrase that. I completely disagree with how it was campaigned on, like as you say, the money for the NHS.
So, can you answer my question now? Did you tell people when you were campaigning that they were taking a leap into an uncertain future that could conceivably be worse than what they currently had?
Well, yeah. I mean, because when people ask, yeah.
Yeah, of course you did.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you something.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think most people had experience of canvassers telling them that this is an utterly blind leap into the unknown, and that's why we should all do it.
Well, it's not about that, though, is it?
You just said it was.
No.
Yes.
Sorry. What I'm saying is that, of course, leaving the European Union is a leap into the unknown. Everyone surely knew that because we've been...
How would they know that? We were told that the trade deal would be the easiest in human history. We were told that we would be able to dictate the terms to our own economic interests. We were told that the German car industry would never go along with any change to the current tariff structure. We were told... Remind me what side all of those arguments were on, because that was the campaign you were part of, which you're now claiming was actually built on telling people to take a leap into the unknown. One of us is being very dishonest here, Luke, and it's not me.
What I said is that voting to leave the European Union is inherently a leap into the unknown. Everyone should have known that. Everyone should do their own research.
So why did we have campaigns then that you joined?
Because I'm morally opposed to the European Union, and it's
you're morally opposed to the European Union.
Yeah.
So what's the moralistic rationale for leaving it then?
Well, basically, I don't agree. Well, so essentially, I believe in free trade, and
that's not morals, mate. Basically and essentially sound like words people speak when they're struggling to come up with anything substantive. What's the moral objection to the European Union?
Hold on a minute.
Here we go. Hold on a minute. Just answer the question.
Just listen to my opinion.
No, I'm not listening to your opinion. I'm listening to your moral justification for opposing European Union membership. Why is it immoral?
Okay, so one of the big pushes that the official Vote Leave campaign always made at events and whatnot was the damage done by the German coffee industry to the Ethiopian and Kenyan coffee industry.
That's not true, though, is it? Because we've got everything but arms legislations that lets the poorest countries in the world sell into the European Union without any tariffs at all.
But it's about... oh, God, see, this is it. It's a few years ago. It's about the...
Oh, God, it was a few years ago, but it's all I've got live on national radio.
There are different tariff terms for whether or not goods are processed or not. Yeah. And Germany has a very large coffee processing industry.
Right.
And they essentially blocked the development, the sort of further...
How did they do that, Luke?
Well, no, by the trade deals they impose on...
How
on
did they block
Kenya.
the development of coffee processing plants in Kenya?
Because if you say to an industry, if you develop your industry further to make yourselves have a better product, you won't be able to sell that product.
When did they do that?
What? Do you want a specific date?
Yes.
What are you
Of
talking
course
about?
I do. I want evidence. I want evidence to back up what you're saying, Luke. It's weird. I'm funny like that. You can't just come on the radio and say stuff.
You can look it up for yourself.
Oh, can look up evidence of Germany telling Kenya not to open any coffee processing plants.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. Let's do it now.
What do you mean?
Let's do it now.
Listen, anyway, the point is, it's about, if people want, so basically, leaving the European Union was, for the majority of people, it was about having a sovereign parliament. And I think
We've already got one. We had one all along. What should I?
Well,
where do I look it up?
You are
Luke,
right.
Where do I look it up?
Right in the fact that a lot of the time when British governments brought in legislation that you would be unpopular.
Where do I look it up, Luke?
The EU.
Where do I look it up?
Pardon?
Where do I look it up?
What? Just search. What? Just search. Well, the difference in tariffs between processed goods and...
No. I'm looking for the instruction from Germany to Kenya not to open coffee processing plants.
Come on, you're being facetious now.
You can't even
like,
say
there's
it.
a difference.
Mate, you're on national radio telling me to look something up. I'm asking you where I find it, and you say I'm being facetious for looking.
No, I'm saying you're being facetious. Yeah, can't talk.
Luke, mate, have a great weekend. Seriously, put your teeth back in next time you ring. Well, and also, given that we're looking up stuff, here's a little line on the coffee question. It's just, you can't believe these people. The EU does charge a 7.5% tariff on imports of roasted coffee from countries to which it does not offer preferential terms. But under its Everything But Arms initiative for the least developed countries, almost all African coffee-producing countries can export roasted coffee to the EU tariff-free. Under the generalised system of preferences for other poor countries, the EU tariff on roasted coffee from Nigeria and the Republic of Congo is a reduced rate of 2.6%. Far from discriminating against African coffee roasters, the EU gives them privileged access to its market. Now, that's a correction at the bottom of an article that our friend in Manchester had read.
John, speak to us.
Hi, Maajid.
Oh, you see, that's better.
Thank you for taking my call. I hope you can hear me okay.
Of course I can, yeah. That was really weird. I don't understand what happened. Anyway, carry on.
Okay. I'm almost 74, Maajid. I mean, I grew up in London. I've seen the changing face of London. Find it pretty frightening, to be honest with you.
What's frightening?
I see the contribution Islam is making to the country. It's just more Islam, in my opinion.
Wait, what's frightening?
It's not just Islam and people, Muslims, talking about, migrants in general who come to this country and bring their country with them and bring their culture, their way of life. They don't integrate with us. We're expected to sort of integrate with them. And I see this problem. But watching a YouTube a couple of days ago, I see a guy in London, well, several guys, in which I consider to be funny hats and long frocks, abusing English girls about the way they are dressed, which I find
funny
racist.
Hats and
but of course, it's only the white indigenous people that have the right to be a racist in this country. Nobody else has that right, only us.
Right.
What's
your, John, out of curiosity, because you seem to be quite upset with the changing face of London, and you say you find it quite
very
scary.
Much so.
What is it that upsets you about London?
Well, I just think when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I mean, I read that there are over 450 mosques now from the centre of London out to the M25. Back in the 60s and 70s, Maajid, I didn't even know what a mosque was.
Yeah, well,
I don't think I'd ever heard of a mosque.
Yeah, okay.
And it is forever
like
changing.
Yeah,
I just think, would they have 450 Christian churches in Islamabad? I very much doubt it.
Yeah, but this isn't Islamabad. It's Britain, where we have freedom of religion.
No, but John, but what I'm saying...
let me say something now. We have freedom of religion. And that's what you don't have in Islamabad, because Pakistan kills apostates by law. Well, it hasn't done for a while, but that's still on the statute book. So, surely you don't want us to be like Pakistan and kill people that aren't Christians in this country?
Sorry?
Shall I just say all of that again? Why do people call radio if they're going to listen to my responses? I did you the courtesy, John, of listening to you talk about why you don't like London because it's full of immigrants. I gave you a response. All right, okay, let's start again. Try and listen to the response and respond to my point, responding to your point. That's how conversation happens. Right, you said something about the number of mosques here, and you said this is England, not Islamabad. I said, John, of course it wouldn't happen in Islamabad. They still have death for apostasy on their statute books. This isn't Pakistan. we don't kill people from different religions or even apostates, and surely that's a good thing. We have freedom of religion. Surely you want that to preserve, to be here, because it's a good thing. And that means people can build synagogues and mosques and temples and whatever else they want to build.
That's right. But what I don't want to see is it take over.
How's
and that's what it's doing, Maajid.
What's
As I
taking
see
over?
It,
What
it's
is
taking over.
What's it? What's taking over?
Well, we're losing our identity.
To who? To what?
For everybody that's coming into the country.
So you're saying...
Listen, I'm a
immigrants
London mate, born and bred.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I remember what it was, and it isn't the same now, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, so you're scared of change, is that what you're saying?
Very, very scared of it, yes.
Right, so change unsettles you?
Yes, it does unsettle me. I do see the change. I just think it's very one-sided, you know. I do see the problems. I mean, it's not just Islam. It's not just people from Pakistan. You know, it's people from all walks of from other countries.
Right. So
I just see the danger here.
So
we're
when
losing
hold
our
on, John.
identity.
Hold on. When you say that, but I want to talk to you about it. So when you're concerned about London, the majority of people in London are still British, right, and English. So what is it you're concerned? You say we're losing our identity. London is majority English and British, and therefore, by definition, majority culture is British, and the identity hasn't been lost.
Well, no, you're talking about people being British. They might be of Pakistani origin or Indian origin, but born in this country.
And therefore they are English if they're born in England?
Yes, but, you know, they don't act like English people. They still have their culture from the country of their, their ancestors or whatever.
It's a bit of a generalisation,
They come here and they bring the country with them.
It's a bit of a generalisation, isn't it, John?
That's how I see it.
Well, so when you look at Sajid Javid as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has he brought, quote unquote, quoting you here, has he brought Pakistan with him?
I'm talking about in general, Maajid. I'm not talking about some of the individuals. Well,
because you're generalising, aren't you, John?
In general.
You're generalising.
I mean, when you see...
John, if I said, John, when you said born and raised in London, what was your profession, if I may ask?
I was a bricklayer.
Yeah. So if I said typical, all white bricklayers are racists, how would you feel?
Well, what I would actually feel is, well, we're the only ones that have that right to be racist.
You think you have a right to be racist, John?
Well,
I mean, legally you do, but I'm saying...
Nobody else gets called a racist. I mean, let me just tell you, this is about 3 or 4 years ago.
No, John, answer my question, please. I said, how would you like it if I generalised about all white bricklayers and said they're all a bunch of racists?
No, I wouldn't like it.
Right, so why are you saying that about... When you said, I'm saying they brought their country with... You're talking in general terms. You're generalising about an entire bunch of people.
Well, I mean, I don't like the way the changing face of this country in London. I don't like it at all.
Change, by the way, change. All old people, John, don't like change. And all babies don't like change because it scares them. And generally, everyone else in the middle is okay with it. A bit, perhaps, cautious about it, but generally okay with it. And I bet you, John, your great-grandparents didn't like what your generation were doing. You know, change scares people. You said you're 76, I think you said. Of course you're going to be concerned about the world changing around you because it's not your world anymore. You're not in charge anymore. You may well be retired, John, and there are other people doing the jobs that you used to do and therefore have the wealth and have the money and have the homes and have the influence that you used to have. And it's natural for you to be scared of change because you're losing control. All that means, John, is that you're at the dusk of your life. Enjoy yourself, enjoy your retirement, and drink a cup of tea, mate.
I love listening to your programme.
That was the best response to me trying to rebut someone's views that I've had for a while. Thank you, John. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. What do I say to that? Anyway, thanks for calling in at least and for having the having the courage of your convictions to put some offensive views my way.
When I'm in Oxford Street today, I wonder where the hell I am. I see the changes so dramatically, and I don't like them. What is it in Oxford Street that makes you not like something? I mean, well, Oxford you'll Street... cut me off immediately if I tell you, but well, I don't like seeing these long robes and women covered from head to foot. Right. I don't like it. Yes. I think it's. But are they? I mean, I imagine if they're walking down Oxford Street, they're tourists because British people tend not to go to Oxford Street for shopping. Sorry, will you speak up? I can't hear you.
I said I imagine that they are tourists on Oxford Street because Brits generally tend not to shop on Oxford Street. It's too busy. It's like going to blooming in New York. It's like going to Times Square. New Yorkers do not go to Times Square.
Yeah, well,
Tourists
you can go to areas in London. Hang on. You can go to areas in London where you won't see any white faces or you won't see many English. So don't give me that one.
So who do you think you're talking to?
Do you think to a different society? I know because I used to work here in the 60s.
Yeah,
before you were born, most probably.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very old lady.
Yeah. So can I ask you? Do you think you're speaking to an Englishman?
You try your best. I've listened to you to make us all think you're educated at Eton. You bend over backwards to try to give us the impression you're public school.
Yeah, what?
I've listened to you.
Really?
It's a very cultivated accent you've got, and it's carefully, you've worked on it.
Am I deceiving people, am I? Am I trying to infiltrate the society to establish a caliphate?
You're trying to be something.
Yeah, what is that? What is it?
You're trying to be a certain type of person.
Am I trying to establish a caliphate secretly in Britain through infiltrating LBC and Global?
No, I've listened to you, and this accent of yours, this Etonian accent, you weren't born with it. You've cultivated it.
Oh, what was I born with?
I've had enough experience with people to know what I'm talking about.
What was I born with?
I've lived on 3 continents. I've visited about 80 countries.
Wow. What was I born with? Tell me.
I know where you were born.
No. What accent was I born with? You just said I wasn't born with this accent. So tell me what accent...
You weren't born with that accent.
No, so what was my accent that you think I've changed from?
Well, it wasn't the one you were born with.
What was it then?
I can't put an exact country to it. I couldn't pin you down to that.
Yeah.
But I happen to know through experience that you have worked very hard to present over the air, and most probably in your life, this Etonian accent, because you love to give the impression that you're public school.
Yeah. Okay, so apart from... I'm not going to address that point, because actually it's just factually incorrect.
Well, that's the impression you give.
Because regularly I mention the fact that I'm a comprehensive lad that went to Cecil Jones and then Westcliff High and then ended up at the University of London. And actually I take pride in that, because I would probably be embarrassed if I was private school, because actually I like to think that I'm salt of the earth. Now, people may disagree with that, but I do regularly remind listeners that I didn't go to private school, especially when I'm speaking to lefty lovies who did go to private school and try and preach to me about why I shouldn't challenge Islamist extremism. And it's perfect and beautiful because they think they are of the people and they're the privately educated people, and they're trying to tell me what to think when they're meant to be, according to their philosophy, defending minorities. I'm talking about people like Corbyn. But anyway, Ursula, back to you. I'm trying to find out from you, or glean from you, what you think I am. I asked you if you think I'm English. You didn't answer my question. Do you think I'm English?
I think you need to calm down.
No, do you think I'm English?
I think that you need to calm down.
Ursula,
you really lose your bottle, don't you?
I'm actually laughing at you, but I'm asking you whether you think I'm English.
You
Please
couldn't
answer the
laugh
question.
at me, dear. I'm too far above you.
Oh, wow. So you got some supremacist tendencies.
Above you
Is that
for you
white
to laugh at
supremacy, Ursula? Is it white supremacy that you harbour?
What are you talking about now?
I'm asking you whether you harbour white supremacy.
I was talking about the changing face of London because I worked here in the 60s.
Yeah. Do you think...
I worked all over.
So can you answer one question? Can you answer one question I put to you, please? You're on radio, right? I'm asking you whether you think I'm an Englishman. I'll also ask you whether you think white people are superior. Can you answer at least one of my questions, please?
Do I think black people are superior, did you say?
No! I said, do you... For the 4th time, I said, do you think I'm English? And number 2, do you think white people are superior to brown people?
You tell us all you are not.
No, I'm asking you whether... Forget what you think I say, because I'll tell you what I think once you answer my question. Do you think I'm English?
No.
What do you think I am?
British.
But not English.
Well, there is a difference, you know. You can be British and be born in Hong Kong. You can be British and born in Nigeria.
No, but England is a country, right? So...
no, you're English if you're born in England.
And I'm born in England, right? So I'm English.
Yes, but okay, you can also be...
Oh, well.
Hang on.
Yeah, so you do agree I'm English?
Do you know, I don't give a damn.
No, but
wanted to talk
you clearly do give a damn, because you've called onto my radio show and you've complained when doing so about how London's changed and it's not white anymore. So I'm asking you whether you think I'm English.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, because if I am English, and the majority of London, by the way, is English still. It's people either British or English. It's either people born and raised in England or people born and raised in Britain who moved to London. London is still majority British and or English. It may not be majority white, but it is white English people in London are still the largest chunk of people, but not the majority of people. But the majority of people are still British and English who are in London. So when you say London's changing, it's not British anymore, it's not English anymore, I'm trying to get to the bottom of what you mean, Ursula, which is why I'm asking you these questions. If you think I'm English, then it's great. You can answer my second question. But I'm not so sure what you believe at the moment, because you seem to be changing your views.
Well, OK, you say you were born here, but you have a culture behind you that certainly did not speak with an Etonian accent, which you break your neck to speak with.
Well,
your accent is
I don't know what your fascination with my accent is, really. I have no idea why you're fixated. I don't know.
It's all about pretense.
Well, the thing is, it's really interesting, because the undertones of your conversation everyone can hear, right? So when you're I'm laughing, I'm not actually shouting it. If you say calm down, don't shout, you put on an accent, you're not really English, everyone can hear you, Ursula. And the fact you're not embarrassed about speaking like this is really, really fascinating. Now, I don't know whether it's because you've got up on the wrong side of the bed, or in your old age you've turned into a bigot, a bit like our previous caller John, who said he was 76 and said the same thing as you're saying. Whatever it is, I'm trying to hold a conversation with you, but rather than just throw insults at me, could you please try and focus? I know it may be difficult for you, but I'm asking you to try and focus. Do you think white people in Britain and in England have more rights, or should have more claim to this country, than brown people in England?
I don't know.
It's quite a simple, relatively easy answer. So most listeners would say no. It's like saying, I don't know, if I ask you whether you think adulteresses should be stoned to death, which happened to me once, by the way, on this radio station.
You most probably have a list of statistics in front of you, which I don't
No,
have.
I don't. I have nothing. I'm just asking your view, your opinion. Do you think white people have more of a claim to this country than brown people who are born here?
Again, I don't know.
Why can't you say no? Why can't you see us all as equal?
Well, because I don't know.
So you don't think we're equal?
I think it's a deep, deep philosophical question
that you
just can't give with a sweeping answer.
It's quite a straightforward question if you don't want to be called a racist.
No, it's not a straightforward question at all.
It's quite a very straightforward
I went yesterday to a famous hospital, and I was treated by a Nigerian professional person. This person was wonderful.
Did they help you?
She treated my eyes.
Yeah.
And
Did you tell them your dodgy views?
Of a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I said to her, she's from Nigeria, I said, you're a healer. You people are blessed. You're healers. So don't throw stupid questions at me, please.
You know what? I'm going to show Ursula some mercy, because actually I've just realised that there may be some age-related issues going on here, so I'm not going to push you any further, Ursula. Thank you for that entertaining conversation. I think you've done enough to pretty much damage your own reputation, and we will move on to...
Well, earlier today, I sat down with Edward Aga, a Justice Minister, and I asked him where the money for this new announcement was coming from.
The Chancellor has been clear, this is new money, this is affordable,
and
this is money coming from us. We have managed the national finances very carefully, as you'll be aware, since 2010. The national finances are in a strong state.
So
as the Chancellor said, the fundamentals of the UK economy are strong, and therefore this is an affordable investment by the Treasury, which the Chancellor has committed in this priority area.
So in order to pay for this, just like the other commitments, you're increasing borrowing?
No, this is about priorities.
So where's it coming from?
We have the money within the Treasury. This is an affordable commitment, £100 million. It may not seem like a huge amount, but it will make a very, very real difference to security in our prisons, to tackling the challenges faced there that drive violence, the drugs and the phones getting in.
But this is from the fiscal headroom, isn't it?
But this is an affordable...
Which isn't a pot of money, is it?
This is a positive story. This is about investing in security in our prisons.
98,500 prison places.
It's higher than that.
That will put us way ahead of our European comparisons, won't it? I mean, why is it that we lock so many people up, but our record on crime isn't any better?
When I talk to victims, what they want to see are perpetrators arrested, brought to justice, taken through the courts.
People want it, I've no doubt about that.
And
it's
they
popular.
want to see
That's
an
why you do
appropriate
it.
sentence. That's why alongside prison places, we're also investing in probation. I want to be clear about this. We are also, and you'll have seen, investing in the probation service.
So will funding for the probation service be as high as it was in 2010?
And we have changed the model. We're ending the CRC contract
Will
early.
it be the same?
This is not just a matter of funding. This is about the model and what works. That's why the National Probation Service is
because you mentioned extra resources.
Yeah, and there is extra resource going in to manage that.
Will it be at 2010 levels or will it be below 2010 levels?
We're investing what we think is needed to make this new model work. It is a different model, so the comparison is not an effective one, because we're changing the nature of what we're delivering and we're changing the nature of the model. But it's also
lower, isn't it?
But it's not just about money. We continue to invest in rehabilitation. If you're trying to compare like with like, I don't think you can do that.
I'm just asking you about
in terms of the probation and prison service overall.
I accept the system has changed since 2010. I'm just asking you about the resources that are going into the system. Will there be more, less or the same resource going into probation?
So in 2010, you'll be well aware we faced a very challenging financial situation inherited from a previous government. We made some very tough decisions around that, but they were necessary.
So it'll still be less.
So we will be putting money back in, but there is still work to do around that.
It'll still be less.
We are investing heavily in the system, but we are not back to where we were in 2010 yet.
Thank you. We got there in the end.
Brian wants to speak to us from Romford.
Hello there, Maajid.
Yep.
Yeah, on the question of prisons telling you that it's not humane, they lock people up for 22 hours, so they're restrained.
Yep.
They're in a room.
Yep. Who do they lock up, Brian?
Prisoners. The same.
Who are prisoners?
Doesn't matter. They're prisoners.
Yep, they're convicted criminals, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah. So the point I think Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons is making here is that these people... Brian, the point the Her Majesty's Inspectorate is making here is that whereas they lock up prisoners and they still don't use such means, why should we be treating people who are not convicted criminals necessarily in this way?
Well, you're deporting them back to a country and they've had no right to come into this country. So, yes, they have broke the law of this land.
So, Brian, there's 2 points there. One is you don't know that because it's not the case that everyone who came here and got deported came here with not having a right to enter. It could be they had a right to enter and in the meanwhile were applying for their various permissions to stay and then extended beyond their visa. And so it could be that they came in with a right to enter but overextended and then got deported. So don't make assumptions, please, about how they ended up being deported. It's not necessarily the case that they came here illegally. But the second point I'd like to make to you, Brian, is, again, to repeat, as I did with my response to the text coming in from Tom, it's not correct to say that just because somebody's overstayed their visa, that now they're a criminal. That's not how we use the English language, is it, Brian?
Well, yes, because they shouldn't be here.
So... have you ever parked on a double yellow line?
You would.
Brian, have you ever parked on a double yellow line?
Tree. Your visa states a time limit.
Right, I'm going to try that one more time. Please try and listen to a question I'm asking you and answer it. Have you ever parked on a double yellow line?
Yeah.
Does that make you a criminal?
No, it's a civil law.
Ah, and what's a visa?
A visa is a time extension allowance.
Right, so do you get where I'm going with this, Brian? Brian, do you get where I'm going with this? Brian, do you get where I'm going with this?
Go on, tell me where you're going then.
Why are you insisting on calling people that overstay their visas criminals when I imagine you've had a speeding point on your licence once upon a time in your life, right? Are you a criminal?
No, it's a civil matter.
Well, it's not actually. It's a criminal offence.
Well, yeah, because they put points on my licence.
Yeah, that's a criminal conviction, Brian. So are you a criminal?
Well, if you put it in that context, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not how we use English, is it? Which is why, when you go for a job application and they say, have you ever had any criminal convictions except for speeding? Because everybody knows that in our language, we don't consider, colloquially, somebody who's been flashed by a speed camera a criminal.
Yeah, but you...
Likewise, we don't consider somebody who's overstayed their visa in this country a criminal, Brian, unless you're a xenophobe.
Well, no, I don't consider myself a xenophobe.
Then stop calling them criminals.
What I'm saying to you is, if they've broke the law and they are due to go back to their country, whatever country it is, then you're taking them into open spaces and on aircraft. So, yeah, you are going to need some restraint.
Well, OK, you're changing the subject there. I was specifically drilling down with you on the subject, why you're calling them a criminal. But that's, I think in the course of that conversation, you kind of admitted you're a criminal, which is interesting, because I wouldn't call you a criminal. And that's just not how we use the English language. Malcolm wants to speak to us from Finchley. Tell us what you think, Malcolm.
Good morning. Maajid, I have to congratulate you on your analysis of surrounding the date of the 31st of October. I like your listeners, whether they voted Remain or Brexit, to ignore the rhetoric, ignore the propaganda, and just deal with the facts. At the moment, the British taxpayer is paying the EU, irrespective of any deal, 250 million a week. That's 1 billion a month, 12 billion a year. Theresa May's machinations and over this duplicity has cost this country 36 billion. Now, it's obvious to me, looking at this situation, that there is no incentive whatsoever for the EU to do any deal. And they can earn 250 million every week saying no.
Yeah.
That's the first point.
Yeah.
The second point is your analysis about the options open to Boris Johnson, and I was listening to that while I was waiting to get on, is, again, very accurate. But I believe that all Boris Johnson needs to do is to leave and on the 31st of October and then call a general election, because what needs to be done is that we've got to get rid of this fifth column of pro-EU quislings out of Parliament so that we can get our democracy back.
So, Malcolm, that would be what Mr Johnson needs to do, and that would certainly be in his interests and would help him get re-elected with a Boris bounce. However, what my analysis was suggesting that the parliamentarians may not allow for it to get to that stage, which is leave come what may and then go to a general election. And instead, they have a plan to thwart the option of no deal by triggering a motion of no confidence. If they were to do that, I believe Mr Johnson's only options left between cancelling Article 50, the legislation itself that MPs would propose, either that would suggest cancelling Article 50, extending Article 50, calling a general election, or going for a second referendum. Out of those four, if I were Mr Johnson, the one that suits me best, if my hand is forced, is to simply support a second referendum.
And that's what they're playing for, because I'm saying they're going to kick this into the long grass internally, if you like, 250 million a week. Why would they not? The EU is bankrupt. The European Central Bank is bankrupt. Its paper assets, for example, owed by Greece, by Italy, by Portugal, and by Spain, they're worthless.
Yeah.
The
Malcolm,
European system is bankrupt.
I do agree with you. I mean, I voted Remain, but I do agree with you that there is trouble in the EU. However, do you not think that if we went out with no deal, with what would happen to the resumption of demands in Northern Ireland for reunification with the Republic of Ireland, or unification, whichever your perspective is, and the SNP, which yesterday it was revealed that there would be a resurgence of support for Scottish independence at 52%, according to the latest poll by Lord Ashcroft. People in Scotland, 52% said they wanted independence if we left the EU. Do you not think that our economy would also start tanking? So put aside your criticism of the EU, because actually I'm not going to dispute much that there is trouble there. But do you not think that if we exited in this way, with no deal, that our union of the United Kingdom starts breaking apart and then our economy starts tanking as well?
I don't buy it. This dark propaganda is the manipulation of public opinion as part of globalisation.
Hold on, Malcolm. With respect, let's put away emotive words like dark propaganda, because I said exiting, I said leaving with no deal. I haven't said crashing out, and I'm doing that deliberately with you to have a conversation with you.
No, the buzzwords.
Right. Well, you've also said buzzwords. Dark propaganda, Project Fear is what you're alluding to. That's not the point, because I could argue with you. You're doing the same thing now when speaking about the European Union. This is also dark propaganda, that it's going to crash. So let's avoid all those emotive language, and let's just stick to the point. Hold on, Malcolm, because I asked a direct question to you. So let's stick. Hold on, Malcolm. Malcolm. So the point is, I asked a direct question to you, and I want you to actually address the substance, not talk about dark propaganda. I'm asking directly. 52% of the electorate in Scotland said they support independence again if we exit the EU with no deal, and you know about Northern Ireland and the troubles there. So, are you not worried that if we leave with no deal, we end up breaking up also the union of the United Kingdom, and will our economy also not tank in that scenario?
If the manipulation of public opinion is allowed to go unchallenged, as it is up in Scotland, your analysis would be correct. I do not believe, however, that if there was another referendum in Scotland and the true facts about the European superstate that's being planned were laid before the Scottish electorate, that they would vote to leave the United Kingdom.
So, Malcolm, the thing is, what you're saying, what I can hear you saying is, if only the Scots understood me. But the problem is, Malcolm, is...
No, I'm not saying that at all.
No, but, Malcolm, the problem is that the Scots don't want to hear this. So they will vote for independence. As of yesterday, I'm telling you, 52%, just as many as voted for Brexit, which is a strange twist of irony, because they actually deploy the very same arguments. You know, we're being controlled by Westminster, and you would say we're being controlled by Brussels. We have all the oil and all the economy, and England's taking it from us, which is exactly what you just said about the EU, basically taking more from us than we get from them. It's precisely the same arguments, with really, really ironically, exactly the same ratio of people wanting it. 52% of Scots said yesterday that they would want independence, right? And so I'm saying to you, you won't have time to convince them to change their minds, because even if you tried, and this is my feeling from me debating this on my own weekend show yesterday, they don't like being told what to do, Malcolm. So if you tried to tell Scots not to do what they want to do, they're probably going to want to do it even more because you're English and they don't like listening to you. So I ask you again, are you not worried that our union will break up in this way?
The Scottish nationalists are the only nationalist party in history that want to be run and controlled by a foreign power. Their situation is laughable.
Well, that's not going to make them want to vote for you anymore, Malcolm, because you're talking at them. You're not talking with them. And if they hear you, which they are right now, they're going to be angry at you.
The Scots are angry about the situation over there. At the moment, the funding that comes from Westminster, I think, generous, and I believe that once we get out of the EU, we need the Scots to work with us to expand our trade, as they have always done over the last 1,000 years.
Did you just say the funding from Westminster is generous to Scotland?
Yes.
Right, that's what the European Union, Brussels, says about the EU.
Hang on a minute. It's our money that they are handing to Scotland and to Wales.
That's what the Scots say about Westminster handing money to them. They say it's our money you took in the first place from the North Sea oil.
Maajid, what do you think they do with the £250 million a week? They bribe people for the continuation of the status quo.
And that's exactly what the Scots say that Westminster does to continue its status quo, Malcolm. Can you not see how your arguments are precisely a mirror of Scottish independence?
The European Union.
Malcolm, please address the point I just put to you, for goodness sake, man. Can you not see that your arguments are precisely a mirror of the arguments that the Scots Nats use to break away from Westminster?
Not at all.
Right, so when they say, Malcolm, this is what you said, not at all, I'm going to drill down on it. When they say, when you've just said, Brussels takes money, redistributes it for bribes, and it's our money in the first place, that's exactly what the Scots say about Westminster, that we take the money from the North Sea oil, we take the money from the fisheries and Scottish beef and Scotch whisky, and we take all that money and we redistribute it to bribe the Scots and the Welsh to stay in the Union of the United Kingdom. Please address the specific point that I've just raised.
Wants to recover the fisheries for the Scots.
Did you just keep talking while I put a question to you?
Well, no, you don't let me answer.
Well, I'm going to let you answer if you answer the specific question I asked you, please. The argument you've used, which is a redistribution and bribery argument, is exactly what the Scots say about Westminster.
the actual creation of a regional government there was from a Conservative government before. The issue about the fairness and equity of that has been superseded by a European Parliament. It's that's got to be removed.
You didn't answer the question. Thank you very much, Malcolm. And so the issue is not that the Brexit vote's been ignored. The issue is, what does the Brexit vote mean 3 years later? I'm sure many people, including myself, didn't think of the Northern Irish backstop when we cast our vote. David from Portsmouth, speak to us.
Yeah, thank you, Maajid. I was going to say, stop talking, Maajid.
Yeah, there we are.
Let somebody else get on.
Yeah, you're on.
It's a crazy poll by the Telegraph. They should not have included the Scottish or the Welsh or the United Kingdom debate. We can't do anything about that. If the crazy Scottish nationalists take the Scotland out of the United Kingdom, you know, it's just crazy. I mean,
why is that crazy, David?
84%.
Why is that crazy?
84% of Scotland's exports are to the rest of the world and the United Kingdom. They only have 16% to Europe.
David, you're making exactly the same sorts of trade-based arguments that we Remainers make against Brexiters, and I imagine you're a Brexiter. You're basically repeating the arguments we make for why we shouldn't have left the European Union.
But what they've given up, what we're talking about is democracy here.
Well, that's what the Scots talk about as well.
To actually overrule Parliament.
David, the Scots talk about democracy as well.
Well, of course they do, because they're in a democratic United Kingdom at the moment, but they're not with the European Union.
No, but the Scots don't think... David, there's no way around this, David, and I'm not going to allow you to try and skirt around the issue. The Scots make the same argument. They say Westminster dictates to them, just as you say Brussels dictates to us. Can you address that point, please?
We know what your opinion is, Maajid.
No, I want you to answer the question, David, please.
We know that you...
No, David, please answer the question.
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, you didn't even listen to the question. This is what I don't like. If you're going to call onto this show, folks, then please at least do me the courtesy of allowing me to host my own show. Right? So, David, I put a question to you, and my question was, can you not see that your arguments against Scottish independence are the same arguments Remainers use against Brexit? And when you talk about how the Scots are in a democracy, but we weren't in the European Union, the Scots don't say that. They say no. Westminster dictates to us in Scotland, just as you, David, say that Brussels dictates to us in England. So it's the same arguments, David, that you're rehashing. The Scots nationalist arguments are the Brexit arguments.
Hang on a minute. So what do you want me to say yes to or no to?
I've asked you whether you agree or see that you can't dismiss the Scottish, that you called crazy, you can't dismiss the Scottish arguments for independence as a Brexiter if you use those same arguments for Brexit.
Hang on a minute. So you're asking me to accept the fact that if I decide that I want to leave the European Union, I have to take in account of Scotland. Is that what you're saying to me?
Well, the majority of the public do.
5 million people in Scotland. I mean, I can't possibly take that into account.
No, I'm asking you, is it worth breaking up the Union of the United Kingdom?
Take that into account.
To pursue what you want to pursue and to achieve your dream of Brexit, would you pursue that even if it meant breaking up the Union of the United Kingdom?
How do we know it will break up the United Kingdom?
We don't know. I've asked you if it did, would you still pursue it?
Example. What if I...
David, I've asked you if it did, would you still pursue it?
But it's impossible. The question you're asking is hypothetical.
Well, yes, it's hypothetical. I'm asking for your opinion in the scenario that Brexit leads to Northern Ireland and Scotland leaving the Union of the United Kingdom. Would you be prepared for that consequence and still pursue Brexit?
I'd have to.
Why would you have to?
Well, because it would happen.
No, but what... If you knew it was going to happen, would you still want Brexit? And if so, why?
You've got to take one step at a time. What if the European Union said to us now, let's take another example. If the UK comes out of the European Union, we won't be able to afford NATO. All of the European Union will have to come out of NATO with that threat. Am I going to change my mind? Of course I'm not. The European Union, as American, as Bolton has just said, what they keep doing is
not
saying,
the same thing.
Right.
Leaving a military alliance is not the same thing as our country falling apart with bits dropping off it, called Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. All right? And it's disingenuous to pretend they're the same thing. James from Clapham, tell us what you think.
Yeah, well, I'll just agree with that gentleman that you were belittling there, Maajid, is unfortunately by any means necessary.
When you say, James, when you say belittling, do you mean putting questions to him and asking for an answer to those questions?
You're twisting the questions upon that gentleman. So the union's going to disintegrate. Would you still accept your vote? Of course he's still going to accept his vote. Because it was a democratic process,
Would
Maajid.
you, James?
Would I what? Would the union disintegrate? The union will not disintegrate.
No, James. Do you still want Brexit, even if it meant Scotland leaving the United Kingdom?
Well, Scotland will never leave the UK. Wales will...
According to a poll by Lord Ashcroft, 52% of Scots said they would leave the United Kingdom if we Brexited. So, James, it's not like I'm making this up. The same polling methodologies that allowed us to say the majority of the public support suspending Parliament to deliver Brexit are also saying the majority of Scots would leave the United Kingdom if you did deliver Brexit. And then they're also saying, and the majority of the country don't want that to happen. They don't want Brexit if it means breaking up the United Kingdom. Where do you stand in all that, James?
Unfortunately, you're a left-wing patsy that doesn't agree with it.
Who is?
You are. You're supposed to be a journalist. You're talking absolute rubbish.
I'm a left-wing patsy that doesn't agree with what, James? Well, no, wait, I'm confused.
We voted to leave. Unfortunately,
what is it I don't agree with, James?
Will understand. James. We are voted to leave. We will leave.
What is it I don't agree with, James? James? Did he go?
No, I'm still here because I'm trying to actually understand what your aim is. You want us to remain, don't you?
No, wait.
You want us to remain. So if the union was to disintegrate because we remain, would you support it?
What? No. No. I think the most important priority, so there you are, I've given you a straight answer to a question. The most important priority for us is to avoid the breakup of the United Kingdom, right? And yes, if it meant that the only way to avoid the breakup of the United Kingdom was to leave the European Union, I'd say, you know what? I don't want that to happen, but at the end of the day, if I am forced to make a choice and it means saving the union of the United Kingdom, then yes, let's Brexit. But unfortunately for you, James, it's the other way around. It's not staying in the EU that's going to break up the UK. It's potentially Brexiting that may break up the UK. And that's an issue that you have to address, not me. Stan wants to speak to us from Burnley. Tell us what you think, Stan.
Well, first, I just want to address one of the questions you were asking one of the previous callers about Scotland leaving and Scotland wanting independence. I think what you're forgetting is that Scotland does get a vote in what goes on in England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. In Europe, we don't. We don't get a direct vote like you do in the UK.
Yes, we do.
Not the same. It's not the same, though. They're not elected.
Yes, it is.
They're not fully elected the same way we are. It's not the same system we use here, is it? They're unelected bureaucrats.
Well, the same criticisms that you apply to the parts of Brussels that are unelected are exactly as the Scots apply to Westminster. For example, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson wasn't elected by Scots, was he? Was he even elected by English people?
Well, the Conservative Party wasn't it?
The Conservative Party was not elected. No, it's a selective membership, not an elective membership. You pay to join.
So we didn't have an election a few years ago and elect the Conservative Party then.
No,
did I misunderstand that?
That is not who selected the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister wasn't selected by the...
Wait a minute.
No, hold on, Stan, let me answer your question. The Prime Minister wasn't selected by only those Conservatives we voted for to Parliament. The Prime Minister was selected beyond those, also by members of the Conservative Party who happen to have the majority of the votes who aren't elected. They pay to join. So, Stan, no, actually, most of the people that voted for the current Prime Minister weren't in themselves elected, and most of the people in this country didn't vote for Boris Johnson. And so the Scots could say with legitimacy they did not vote for this Prime Minister. Stan, what do you say to that?
Well, we don't vote for a Prime Minister, we vote for a party.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm not disputing that with you, Stan. I'm saying that that's like what you say about Brussels, the Commissioner, and all these not being elected. Parts of the European Union are elected, just like you're saying parts of our constitutional setup is elected. For example, the European Parliament is elected, and we send MEPs from here. In fact, Mr. Farage is one of them, right? Also, the Council of Europe is indirectly elected, like our government, which is always only ever indirectly elected, meaning the Prime Minister and the majority party that control Parliament are the ones that form government, but we don't vote for a government in this country. We vote for our local MP. So in the European Union, the Council of Europe are directly elected because they are made up of ministers who are elected from each of the member countries, including our ministers who sit on the Council of Europe. Yes, the Commission isn't elected. It's a bureaucracy, just like Sir Mark Sedwell and the senior civil servants are unelected, just like Dominic Cummings is unelected, because it's a bureaucracy. So, Stan, it's a mixture of both in the European Union, and it's a mixture of both here in the United Kingdom as well. And therefore, your criticisms against the EU are precisely the criticisms of the Scots against Westminster.
I don't think that we elect the European government in the same way as we elect the UK government.
What do you mean, the European government?
Well, we don't have a genuine election.
What is the European government?
Well, sure, Brussels, all that.
So what is? Do you know the structure of the European Union?
I'm not the most.
Where do laws get proposed? The European Parliament is where the laws get made, right?
Yep.
Do we elect people to that?
Not directly, we don't. No.
What?
Well, not directly.
Stan,
we don't have a vote on who Spain's putting in, do we? We don't have a vote on who Germany's putting in. We don't have a vote
Stan,
on who
that's like saying I live in London.
No, Scotland does.
Stan, that's like saying I live in London. I don't have a vote who Luton puts in. Each area sends members of the European Parliament that are elected from regions to the European Parliament. We send more than one. We send MEPs from our regions. Mr. Farage is one of them, Stan. I suggest you pick up a book on the European Union and educate yourself a bit more on the fact that they do hold elections, just like we hold elections for Westminster. Not every aspect, not every element of our system is elected for example, the Prime Minister, that you've just admitted, the senior civil servants, the Queen, who is the head of our state, mind you. She isn't elected, Stan.
Europe.
Is the Queen elected, Stan?
Well, that's a completely new thing, isn't it?
No, Stan. Is the Queen elected?
Does the Queen affect our politics?
Absolutely she does, because she's the head of state, and she has to... this whole issue of proroguing Parliament is a classic example of it. You know, if the Queen chooses accept Mr. Johnson's machinations, he's saying that he may well refuse to resign... You know, that does drag the Queen into it. The Queen still has, up until now, untested powers, but they are powers. They exist, Stan. And she isn't elected. So I think you're getting a bit confused. The United Kingdom is a mixture of direct and indirect elections with an unelected head of state, right? The European Union is a mixture of direct and indirect elections with an unelected commission. And so the arguments Scots have against us, meaning us in England, are the same that you Brexiters have against Brussels, and there's no way around that, Stan. Right, we're going to go to Sarah from Harrow. Tell us what you think, Sarah.
Oh, hello, Maajid.
Welcome.
I think Westminster is not in any way democratic. Unless it was proportional representation, you can't have a democracy. David Cameron got 12 million votes, and he got 300-odd MPs.
So what is it? Are we in a dictatorship, are we?
Well... Can I just mention Scotland? Scotland is devolved. Scotland has more power, per head than we have in England.
You can't just
England
say well to an answer of a question, then ignore me, Sarah.
We have 10 times the population of Scotland, and we've got less say in everyday... For example, Scotland can ban fracking, which is a very big deal. We can't in England. But they can stop the sale of council houses. I know that it's not the exact question, but I do think just a simple yes or no regarding is the Parliament democratic? It's not just as simple as that.
Which is it's not just who's the one who started this conversation by saying we're not living in a democracy, and now you're trying to tell me it's not as simple as that. Which one is it, Sarah?
Westminster.
Which one is it, Sarah?
I know that it would be cool. As I said, Westminster, as I've just made the point, unless you have proportional representation, you're going to have a government that's led by maybe
Sarah.
12
Can we do this, please?
people.
Can we do this, please, Sarah? Can we do this, Sarah? Let's try and use nuance in our points that we're making, right? So it's more accurate, Sarah, surely, to say proportional representation is a fairer way to do democracy than to say we don't have democracy unless we have PR.
Yes, because maybe you're right.
Yes, thank you. Because otherwise the implication that you're making is we're North Korea, which we're not, because that's what an absence of democracy looks like. And I take that personally because I've lived in an absence of democracy and I've suffered the consequences of dictators. And actually, we take it for granted what we've got here. So let's not say we don't have a democracy. Let's say, which I agree with, by the way, that a fairer way to do democracy would be to have PR.
Yes, I agree. Sorry, I probably went over the top with the first sentence. But I'd just like to make the point that England doesn't have a devolved parliament like Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And I think we, as I've just made the point, we have 10 times the population of Scotland. Scotland has a lot. They can decide, as I just said, they can decide on free university fees, free dental. They can choose not to sell their council.
So if I'm understanding you, Sarah, correctly, you're saying that the fact that Scotland has a devolved parliament outside of Westminster is good, and that's why the Scots shouldn't leave us.
Yes, but I think England...
Right. So does that argument not also apply to the EU? Because the fact that the EU has a parliament and we have, quote-unquote, a devolved parliament from them, which we call Westminster, should also therefore apply that we don't have to leave the EU.
Well, I think, as your previous caller, it's not as simple as that. I don't think if I wanted to stop fracking in England, I couldn't do anything about it if I didn't have this government decided not to. The EU would make no difference. Fracking actually...
Sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry. I didn't understand your answer. Let me ask it again and then you can try and explain to me. Sorry, it's my fault. I didn't understand your response to me. And maybe you did answer it, I just didn't catch it. If Scotland shouldn't have independence because we've given them, quote-unquote, a devolved parliament, right, and therefore they've got enough now, they've got enough powers, and so they should stay part of the United Kingdom, which is your argument, that's what you're positing, then shouldn't that same argument be valid to the European Union? They have their parliament, it's called the European Parliament, and we have a quote-unquote devolved parliament here, which is Westminster. And so, therefore, for the same reason that you're saying Scotland has enough now, it's got enough powers with its own Holyrood, we've got enough powers at Westminster, so we don't have to break away from the European Union either.
So they shouldn't have it.
Did you just talk over the entire question I just asked you, Sarah?
Possibly, yes, I'm sorry. I do understand the point you're making about the EU.
And what's your answer to it?
Well, as I say, because I don't think we can... As I've just said, the EU is 27 countries. Any one of them could void the vote. And
wait, void which vote, Sarah? Whoa. Void which vote? Let's be specific. What are you talking about here? Are you talking about motions that are put before the Council of Europe? That could be vetoed by the member state representatives who are indirectly elected by each member country, or are you talking about the European Parliament, which is directly elected via a, by the way, proportionately representative system, which you've just advocated for? Therefore, surely by your own argument, the European Parliament is more democratic than Westminster, because you've just said that it's unfair that Westminster doesn't have PR. Well, when we send MEPs to the European Parliament, they do have PR. So by your logic, the European Parliament is more democratic than Westminster.
Please, Malta, for a start, has one vote.
Did you just keep talking? What is it with people today? I actually gave you 2 minutes over time. And you're still going.
2 million people...
She's still going. Is it people taking advantage of the fact I've got a cold?
So that really is...
You see that?
You'd have to add all the...
I can't believe this. Shall we go to the break, guys? I think we should. We're probably overdue for a break.
Romania, Malta, Bulgaria...
You're listening to Maajid Nawaz on LBC, and the time now is 11:17. Going back to the calls around the monarchy and tribalism having engulfed our political debate. Darren wants to speak to us from Port Talbot in South Wales, and the number to call, as always, is 0345 6060973. Tell us what you think, Darren.
Hi, Ahmed. First of all, I'd like to send my condolences to the family of Laura out there in Malaysia. Unfortunately, it's something that no one would want to go through. I did phone up earlier to speak to you regarding the Scottish situation, but I had to get off the phone, unfortunately, for reasons. Regarding the monarchy and regarding Nigel Farage, I don't think he was actually attacking the monarchy. I think this is where it's gone a little bit out of hand. I think I've never heard him speak ill of the Queen. I've never heard him speak ill of Prince William. I think that what has happened now is he's talking about Prince William.
It was Prince Harry he spoke about.
Oh, sorry, Harry. Yeah, sorry. I think Harry's gone just a little bit introvert from what he used to be since he's met Meghan.
Yeah, but some people would say that he's grown up because he used to be quite a, vagabond. He was quite kind of like the rebel in the royal family, and maybe the woman's presence in his life has stabilised him.
No, I don't think so. I
know it certainly happened to me. It happened to you, didn't it, Christian? Yeah, I mean, Christian's sitting right here. He got a woman in his life. It stabilised him. Soon to be... Am I allowed to say that? Soon to be married, I think. So that's what a woman does, surely, in our lives, Darren. She stabilises us.
I've had two wives, maybe, to stabilise me. Don't worry about that. But what I'm saying is, I understand that what he's basically saying is we never see Prince Harry out in engagements anymore, like we used to, playing on football pitches with kids. We don't see him running down tracks like he used to when he did with William and Kate. We don't see him out like that anymore. It seems that since he's met Meghan, he seems to be more introvert, and we don't see that side of him since he's met Meghan. It's not a racist thing. It's not anything.
Well, so I'm not saying it's a racist thing, because unless you said something racist, I wouldn't want to just say you're being racist. But Darren, what I will say is, so what? I mean, look, the guy's changed. Everyone changes. You should have seen me in my first marriage. I was still a radical Islamist. I've changed. I mean, come on. People change.
No, but I mean, I'm saying that, she has to understand, and I think that Harry does understand, that there are certain roles that you have to take. There are certain protocols that you have to take. Now,
well, he's what? He's like 6th in line to the throne? What is he? Darren, how many in line to the throne is he?
We used to see that out of the Lindham wing, as soon as that was the baby was born in the Lindham wing. We've seen that for years and years since he was actually born out of the Lindham wing.
Darren, can I just say
she changed it? She wasn't quite.
Can I just say, Darren? Cause this has been said about Prince Charles as well, right? So when Diana. Bless her, when she passed away, and then Prince Charles, it was the same thing. Was look, how could he choose Camilla Parker Jones over her? And no, and he's not allowed to marry. And the Queen didn't attend Prince Charles's wedding because. Not because she doesn't love her son, but because royal protocol wouldn't allow the next in line to the throne to marry after a divorce and so on and so forth, right? So, to get married again. And so the point is, things change. Traditions get updated. And Harry is actually doing the same as Prince Charles did. He's just moving things on with the times. Surely that's okay. I mean, it doesn't make me a royalist, because I still want the monarchy to be reformed. But I do worry sometimes that this obsessive focus on Prince Harry's behaviour. I mean, the guy just grew up and got married and settled down.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough, but I think that there are certain you still have to have some sort of connection with your subjects.
If you don't really want them to be subjects anymore.
As far as Nigel, like I said, as far as Nigel's concerned, I do not agree with what he said about the Queen Mother, God bless her. I totally don't agree with that. But he is personally, as a subject, should be able to sort of like say, well, we want to see more of the royal baby. We want to see more of yourselves. We want to see more. But Meghan seems to be bringing it. No, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to be private. We're private now. And I don't. Are
you saying? Because what I'm reading is basically what you're saying. Is because you said Meghan, you mentioned Meghan. What you're basically saying is Prince Harry can't think for himself.
Yeah, basically.
Isn't that more insulting than anything Meghan's done? The fact that you've just said Prince Harry can't think for himself, and you're worried that Meghan is the problem here. You said you don't agree with Nigel Farage criticising the late Queen Mother. You've just criticised Prince Harry for being unable to think for himself. I'd rather apply the principle of charity and say.
What's that? What you said? What? I have said that I would prefer Nigel Farage not to criticise the Queen Mother.
Yeah,
but
you've just criticised Harry by saying he can't think for himself.
I believe that Harry is not thinking for himself at the moment. I think that Meghan is doing all the things.
So, which is a criticism. So
he's loved that.
So, Darren, is it precisely what Nigel Farage said about the late Queen Mother, which is you found insulting that she's a chain-smoking, overweight gin drinker. You've now insulted Prince Harry by saying he can't think for himself. So, what's the difference?
No, I'm thinking because everyone's been married, all I can see from the outside, sometimes, looking from the outside in, is sometimes the best way to look in.
What? What was that? Did that make sense to anyone? All right,
just turned him into a tire cruncher and tree hugger.
How is that not insulting Prince Harry, Darren?
What do you mean?
You've just insulted...
I'm insulting Prince Harry.
Why are you insulting Prince Harry if you don't like Nigel Farage insulting the late Queen Mother?
Because I can see exactly... Because the Queen Mother hasn't got an answer for herself, has she? God bless her, she's gone. Okay, but I'm saying I'm criticising Prince Harry because I've seen the way he's gone. He's turned from a fun-loving guy, a servant.
Okay, like wearing Nazi uniforms like wearing Nazi uniforms to stag parties.
Sorry.
Like wearing Nazi uniforms to stag parties. You're unhappy he's no longer behaving like that.
We've all forgotten about that, man.
Well, I haven't.
All I'm saying is what
Nigel Farage hasn't.
I'm saying he's turned. He's totally turned. He's just a henpecked husband now.
Ah, come on, Darren. I think there isn't. I'm not going to call you a racist because that's not what I'm hearing. I am hearing a bit of chauvinism, to be honest. That's what I'm hearing. Why is he listening to his wife? Why doesn't he think for himself? It's this kind of notion that, at the end of the day, if a man loves a woman and wants to make sure she's happy as well, that somehow there's something wrong with that. That rather it's the woman that should follow the man. And maybe Prince Harry, being from a different generation to you, Darren, sees these roles in a slightly different way. And maybe he doesn't think that it's Meghan's job to obey him. Maybe he thinks this is a partnership. I mean, it's kind of okay. Anyway, Darren, thanks for calling.
I know he's a moron.